Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. Let's invite the government representatives to join us. We are scrutinizing and discussing 3 pieces of subsidiary legislation relating to road tunnel tolls and road traffic fees. Let's invite the government representatives to enter the meeting room. Let me welcome Mr. Liu Chen-sen, Undersecretary for Transport and Logistics, and his team. Members, I'd like to remind you that you should declare interest before you speak. We will discuss the 3 pieces of subsidiary legislation in one go. Let me first invite the Undersecretary to walk us through the 3 pieces of subsidiary legislation. Then I'll open the floor for questions. Members who'd like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. Now over to you, Undersecretary. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, members. The Financial Secretary in his budget this year mentioned that we will review the charges for different aspects. We have consulted the transport panel and we have reviewed our proposals. And then we submitted our proposal to this subcommittee on 3 pieces of subsidiary legislation. We propose to adjust the toll charges, the fees for electric private cars, as well as the parking meter charges. Let me brief members on the proposal. The first amendment concerns the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Number 2 Regulation 2025 is about adjusting the toll charges. We adopt a science-based approach and we adhere to 4 major principles, including user pays, traffic management needs, efficient first, and public transport first. We also consider public affordability. We have already considered the feedback given by the transport panel, and we propose increasing the tolls for the Aberdeen Tunnel and Shingmun tunnels. The tolls will be increased from $5 to $8. There will be minimal impact on the traffic condition. We also propose an $8 toll for the use of the Central Kowloon bypass to divert traffic in busy roads in Kowloon, and traffic will be diverted by 20% and 15% of spare capacity will be reserved to cope with future traffic growth and will be able to cover 80% of the cost. In relation to the toll adjustment for the Aberdeen Tunnel and the Shingmun tunnels, after the scrutiny work is completed, the fees will take effect on the 21st of September this year. And for the Central Kowloon bypass, after the commissioning of the CKB in the second half of 2026, the new fees will take into effect. The second amendment concerns the Road Traffic Registration and Licensing of Vehicles Amendment Number 4 Regulation 2025. Currently, the fees for EPCs are charged based on the unladen weight. With advancement in technologies, EV batteries are becoming smaller and lighter, and the current charging proposal is no longer appropriate, and it cannot completely reflect the value of EPCs. The license fees for EPCs as well as the fees for fuel-propelled vehicles, there is a 6-time difference. After we've consulted the EEB, we are proposing adjusting the license fee structure for EPCs. We are going to charge the fees based on the rated power. There will be a 5-tier charging scheme, and we have drawn reference from the practices in other jurisdictions. The adjustment will span over 6 years and in 5 phases. The license fees will be from 25% to 40%. We have proposed a buffer period. The new license structure will take effect starting from the 1st of November this year. The existing EPCs will have a 4-month grace period. The third amendment is an amendment concerning the Road Traffic Parking Amendment Regulation 2025, and we are adjusting the parking meter charges. In order to make good use of existing resources, we propose adjusting the maximum fee from $2 per 15 minutes to $4 per 15 minutes. That's a maximum fee of $16 per hour to increase the turnover of metered parking spaces to meet people's needs. The new proposal will take effect starting from the 28th of February this year. As for the fees for goods vehicles, buses, and coaches, they will remain the same. From April to June, we consulted the transport panel on the above proposals. We have fully considered members' feedback before we came up with these proposals. We hope members will support the legislative amendments. That's all from me. We're happy to take members' questions. Now I'll open the floor for questions. I'll read out the lineup. Mr. Kitson Yang, Mr. Adrian Ho, Mr. Chao Xiu Chung, Mr. Frankie Yik, Mr. Michael Luk, Mr. Ben Chen, Mr. Dennis Leung, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, and Ms. Connie Lam. I'll be the last one to speak. I'll give each member 4 minutes, including questions and answers. Mr. Kitson Yang. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the Undersecretary. The Undersecretary led his team and communicated multiple times with us, and they take on board our suggestions and proposed a toll of $8 instead of $10. I'm not quite happy with the $8 toll, but at least I see it as a starting point. I hope in future the Undersecretary can think about the following. First, back at the transport panel, I already made the suggestions. Can there be a time-varying toll, that is, a different toll for different periods? I respect the administration, but I hope it will give this a second thought. The purpose of having this CKB is to help people travel faster from Kwun Tong to Yau Ma Tei or even to the airport. The reason for having this CKB is because there is a tailback at the Cross Harbour Tunnel, and so there has been traffic congestion at Gascoigne Road. And during non-peak hours, there is no congestion. So can the administration think about lowering the toll further? I'm not saying that there should be a different toll for commercial vehicles or other types of vehicles. Can there be a uniform toll of $8 during peak hours and perhaps $4 during non-peak hours? This will help ensure smooth traffic at the CKB. Secondly, you said that there will be a spare capacity of 10% at the CKB. So can there be a regular review if there is greater spare capacity? Well, I don't think there will actually be greater spare capacity, but if that's the case, can the toll be further adjusted? If there is no spare capacity, still I think there is a need to review the toll regularly to see if there should be further adjustment. My last suggestion. There are roads connecting with Kai Tak, but will there be roads connecting Kai Tak two ways? Otherwise, that would undermine the road capacity of Kai Tak and Kowloon City. I know you have your own consideration when you design the roads, but in order to revive the development of Kowloon East, I think there is a need for you to take into consideration the road capacity and design. Undersecretary, well, let me talk about time-varying tolls first. The major purpose of implementing time-varying tolls is to encourage motorists to travel during non-peak hours to reduce traffic congestion during peak hours. If a tunnel has already exceeded its capacity, then we may implement time-varying tolls. Mr. Kitson Yang proposed a different uniform toll for peak hours and non-peak hours. For the Central Kowloon bypass in particular, the capacity has not been exceeded yet during peak hours, so there is still spare capacity. So we are proposing a straightforward proposal. We are implementing a uniform toll for private cars, commercial vehicles, and buses to reflect the principle of efficiency first and public transport first. If we lower the toll or if we implement a free toll, that would not reflect the user pays principle, and we won't be able to recover most of the cost. As to whether we will regularly review the toll based on the traffic volume, we will definitely do so. If there is really serious congestion at the Central Kowloon bypass, then we will have to inevitably implement time-varying tolls. As to whether there is possibility for us to further lower the toll, we will consider this in due course. As to whether there should be exit and entrance at Kai Tak, we are commissioning the Yau Ma Tei section tunnel of the CKB first, and there is an entrance and exit at Kai Tak, even that T2 will not be commissioned yet. There will be different roads that lead you to the Yau Ma Tei section tunnel of the CKB. Next, Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of questions. The administration once said that the CKB will be able to deal with the congestion issue at Chatham Road as well as Gascoigne Road. However, I noticed that the administration had dismantled the car park at Temple Street and redeveloped the flyover. After the redevelopment, the congestion black spot at near the fruit market still exists. I want to know what the government has achieved after spending so much money in remodifying the flyover. Secondly, I support the license fee proposals for EPCs. However, some existing EPC owners think this proposal is not fair to them. And they did not take into consideration potential increase of the license fees when they bought their e-vehicles. So what do you have to say to the existing EPC owners with this proposal? Thirdly, on the Aberdeen Tunnel and the Shingmun tunnels, will you implement time-varying tolls for motorists? Lastly, on the parking meter charges, I very much support this proposal because the charges have not been adjusted for many years. However, I do want to ask about the other measures. Does the government have the determination to tackle long-term occupation of metered parking spaces? Currently, in Wan Chai, near Jeffrey Road, we see long-term occupation of metered parking changes, and this is quite organized. So I want to know if there are any measures to control and tackle the problems.
4 questions. About improvement of the Gascoigne Road flyover, I will give the floor to my colleague to speak on that. About control measures to tackle abuse of metered parking spaces, again, I'll give the floor to the Transport Department to explain about our efforts to combat illegal occupation of metered parking. As for private car owners, From the existing owner's perspective, the raise seems not to be fair to them. Now, having listened to their views, as Mr. Ho just now mentioned, we will increase the number of phases from 3 to 5. That means these 5 phases will be implemented over a period of 6 years. Now, for existing EPC owners, together with the grace period, all in all, we're talking about a total period of 8 to 9 years. And by then, the owners may wish to buy a new car anyway. And this will cushion the impact. As for the annual license fee is charged on an annual basis, be it newly registered or existing vehicles, we will adopt the new schedule. About the time varying tolls. Now, you must understand that the purpose of implementing time varying tolls is to divert traffic, especially during peak hours. For Aberdeen Tunnel and Shing Mun tunnels, even at peak hours, their capacities have yet to be reached. There is no need to adopt time varying tolls as a result. We rather adopt a simpler approach to impose tolls on private cars as well as commercial vehicles. I'll give the floor to the Transport Department now. I note the member's question. The works relating to the Central Kowloon bypass are still in progress. We have improved certain sections and commissioned these sections for public use. But in fact, overall speaking, works have not yet been completed. And the works take up space. By the time the whole project is completed, the roads will be widened and traffic flow will definitely be smoother. So at this moment, we're introducing temporary traffic management measures. And this may cause some inconvenience. Right, metered parking, would take this question, please. Occupation of metered parking. Right, the government has been sparing no effort in tackling long-term and unlawful occupation of metered parking. In fact, for the new generation of meters, they come with a sensor to detect occupancy of metered parking spaces without the payment of fees, and the information will be referred to the police for follow-up action. Now, our service provider conducts daily patrol, and once irregularities are identified, reports will be made to the police. And we'll also actively deploy technology. We will further explore other technologies to be used. For example, we can install AI-enabled sensors at the back of meters to check whether the parking space is occupied by a genuine vehicle or by some other objects, and that this information can be passed on to the relevant law enforcement agencies. Mr. Chow Su-chung. Thank you, Chairman. About Central Kowloon bypass, I thank the government for consulting the panel and heeding our views. The current proposal is one of $8, which is $2 down from $10, the original proposal. Now, the government floated a proposal containing 3 scenarios. For the first scenario, that's a toll-free scenario, I find it to be the most reasonable one. Because for the VC ratio, even at the peak hours, it's just 0.97. So capacity has not yet been reached. And about traffic diversion, the first scenario presents the best solution to traffic congestion along Long Chang Road and Gazette Road flyover. Of course, I understand the government also needs to recover costs, and I agree that tolls should be charged. But why $8 and not $10 or $5? Now, I listened to the government's explanation. According to the paper, and as explained by the Secretary, if the toll level is set at $5, the VC ratio will be 0.9. But why isn't 0.9 allowed? Why must we aim at 0.85? If $5 are charged, is it true that you'll be able to divert traffic better at Gascoigne Road flyover and Longchamp Road? Because according to your current $8 proposal, in terms of traffic diversion is not the ideal solution. Because especially for Gascoigne Road flyover, the VC ratio is close to 1.2. So why doesn't the government actively consider the $5 toll proposal instead? The second point is this. Secretary once mentioned that the toll levels will be subject to adjustments upon review. So can you give an undertaking? Say 1 year after introducing the tolls, you will review the situation. For example, when the VC ratio comes down to a certain level, you will review and adjust the tolls. Can you give this undertaking? My second point is this about metered parking. I understand that the occupancy rate is close to 90% at the moment. So after raising parking meter fees, do you have a target occupancy or utilization rate? Have you considered that? And have you conducted an assessment? Because it is entirely possible that after raising parking meter fees, the private car parks nearby will also introduce pay hikes. Under Secretary, the first question is indeed considering different scenarios and different toll levels. Like Mr. Chow said, of course, toll-free would be the best option, but we need to consider the 4 charging principles: traffic management, public transport first, efficiency first, etc. So in terms of cost recovery, if we introduce a lower toll level, we will not be able to recover as much. So we need to strike a balance. And about the next point, we need to reserve capacity because along Central Kowloon Bypass, there will be new developments. And there will also be new developments in Tseung Kwan O. So when new developments are completed, a lack of reserve capacity will lead to traffic congestion. And by then, we may need to introduce toll hike, and this will not be accepted by the public. We believe, all in all, the $8 proposal is the appropriate balance. Now, reviewing the tolls after 1 year, this is all along the government's practice. Of course, we need to observe for at least a year to see the traffic condition as well as other matters. So definitely, we are going to conduct a review. About the target utilization rate after raising meter parking fees, comparing to the fees charged by private car parks, we're still much cheaper, especially comparing to car parks managed by the Housing Authority or the Transport Department. So we don't envisage a surge of demand in private parking spaces because of increase in parking meter fees. And without an increase in demand, I don't see that there is an incentive for private car parks to jack up their fees as well. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Chairman. I have a number of questions. The purpose of building the Central Kowloon Bypass is to divert traffic along Longchamp Road and other east-west traffic. Now, according to my sector, the government should not charge tolls for using Central Kowloon Bypass, because if tolls are charged, traffic will tend to avoid using it, and this would defeat the purpose of the Central Kowloon Bypass. So the government should lower the tolls at least. The second point is this. I definitely agree that for license fees for EPCs, we should change the structure so that it's calculated on the basis of rated power. Now, I see that you have EB representatives here. E-private cars account for about 18% of all private cars in Hong Kong. I believe it's the government's intention to encourage motorists to switch to electric vehicles. So in terms of these incentives, the government should provide tax breaks for e-vehicle owners, and there should be more e-vehicle charges. I think that's the concern of owners. The third point is this. Whilst I appreciate that there will be no increase in parking meter fees for commercial vehicles, there is still a problem because we have different types of commercial vehicles apart from coaches and buses, such as the so-called nanny vans and school coaches. They do not qualify as commercial vehicles or goods vehicles, so they will need to pay higher parking meter fees, just as other private car owners. So how do you help solve the problem of parking for the nanny van drivers? Right, I'll take the first question and then I'll give the floor to the Transport Department colleagues. Now, we propose an $8 toll for Central Kowloon bypass, but there are ways to make savings. I'll give the floor to the Transport Department to explain that in a moment. For the second question, I'll give the floor to Dr. Yang from EEB to explain incentives for people to buy electric vehicles. Now, let me turn to the third question. It's true that the fees for commercial vehicles will not will remain the same. Now, for these school coaches or nanny vans with a purple label, they must use parking spaces for private cars instead. At the last meeting, we explained our 8 measures to tackle the problem of insufficient parking spaces for commercial vehicles. Let me explain some of them. For example, in the design of new development areas, we will make sure that more roadside parking spaces will be provided for commercial vehicles exclusively. And there are also loading and unloading bays under the management of the Housing Department. At night, they can be converted into commercial vehicle parking spaces. There are also other measures to increase the supply of overnight parking for commercial vehicles. And this is something that we are working with the Transport Department so as to alleviate the shortage. I'll give the floor to the EEB colleague, Dr. Yang. Thank you, Mr. Yik, for the question. The member has made a very good point about electric vehicles. Things are picking up. According to the latest figure, in Hong Kong, we now have 120,000 electric vehicles. That's 8 times the number 5 years ago. For newly registered private cars, in 2021, electric vehicles only accounted for 20%. Now it's 70%. So around the world, I'd say that we are topping the chart, and things are really looking bright for us. Electric vehicles are now cheaper and the performance are getting better. And this is also one reason why more car owners are switching to electric cars. The other point is this, as mentioned by the Undersecretary just now, comparing to other places, electric vehicles in Hong Kong are getting more popular. And if we compare the expenses for EPC owners, they save up to 90% on fuel costs comparing to fuel-propelled private cars. So that's another incentive. But as the member rightly put, at the moment, many people criticized the lack of EV chargers in Hong Kong. We're taking a multi-pronged approach. For public EV chargers, as of June this year, we have 14,500 EV chargers, comparing to just 3,321. The figure has increased by 4 times. So more EV chargers are coming on stream. And on the 25th of July, we just rolled out a new measure. $300 million will be invested in another rapid EV charging scheme. And we're beginning to accept applications. As the member mentioned, applications period begins on the 25th of July, and our target is set by 2026-28, there will be 3,000 rapid charges.
Mr. Ho, you will save 3 to 6 kilometers if you travel by CKB instead of Gascon Road or Lung Chun Road. For heavy goods vehicles, that's $9 per kilometer. For light goods vehicles, it's about $4 per kilometer. And if you can save up 3 kilometers, that means you can save up $12. If you use the CKB, you also save time. So commercial vehicles will benefit a lot with the proposed toll. Chairman, I just want to add one point. When the government reviews the arrangement for commercial vehicles parking spaces, please pay attention to the needs of taxis, minibuses, as well as nanny vans. We have parking spaces for large commercial vehicles, but not the smaller ones. I want to ask the administration to be brief because for each question, it has taken up about 7 minutes. Mr. Michael Luke, I thank the administration for taking on board some of the public's views, especially the proposal for the CKB. The proposed toll is now at $8. Secondly, on the license fees for e-private cars, the adjustment will phase over 5 years instead of 3 years. I have a couple of questions. First, on the proposed toll for the use of the CKB. There have been questions of whether there will be traffic congestions. Well, I think we will only find out after the CKB is commissioned. I hope the government will undertake to review whether there is room to adjust the toll 1 or 2 years after the CKB is commissioned. We believe that there won't be traffic congestion during non-peak hours. We hope more cars will make use of this route because it will help reduce carbon emission. Secondly, can the toll be free for commercial vehicles? Commercial vehicle drivers have been having a hard time. You will, of course, save up money if you use the CKB instead of Lung Chun Road. However, we do hope to ensure a better operating environment for the trade. Now, turning to parking meter charges, the existing charge is $2 per 15 minutes, and it will go up to $4 per 15 minutes. The administration said the charge will not go up for private parking spaces. Well, let's wait and see. For privately run car parks, they charge motorists based on the charges imposed by the government. Well, the fixed penalty for traffic contravention have recently gone up. The maximum fees for metered parking spaces would be $4 per 15 minutes. This is not very expensive, but can we not adopt the uniform fee proposal? Can you look at individual parking spots? For some parking spaces, it could be $4 per 30 minutes. And for other spots, the fee could be further lowered. Can you tell us whether it's possible to charge less in certain areas? I represent the Tuen Mun district. The FTU has recently set up a new office, and the nearby car park is charging $16 per hour. we believe that the parking fee will go up with the adjustment of the parking meter fees. So my question is, can $4 per 30 minutes be charged, or can the parking fee be further lowered? Under Secretary. Now, on the point about the CKB, as mentioned, 1 year after the CKB is commissioned, we will review the traffic flow and the toll. Secondly, should commercial vehicles be charged no toll at all? Well, as mentioned, commercial vehicles will definitely save up money. If we implement a toll-free proposal, then we won't be able to reflect the user pays principle, and we will recover less operating cost every year. As for roadside parking spaces, should there be different fees for different parking spaces? Indeed, $4 per 15 minutes is the maximum proposed fee. For some areas, we are not charging $4 per 15 minutes. As to the proportion of parking spaces which charge $4 per 15 minutes, I don't have the relevant information in hand. Perhaps we can provide supplementary information afterwards. Next, Mr. Dennis Low. My first question concerns parking meter charges. I think the government is simply catching up now. The charges are not consistent. Can you consider whether you charge the parking meter fees between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m.? The charges are different in different areas, and this has to do with the government financial position, so please review this. Also, how about the fees during nighttime? I hope the government will make use of its resources in order to ensure a certain level of revenue. Secondly, about tunnel tolls, the government has not reviewed the tunnel tolls for a long time, so it needs to catch up now. I am concerned how the government can control costs. The management cost is too high. Please provide the relevant statistics. In the mainland, the government manages tunnels in the way they manage other roads, and they have dedicated teams to deal with any emergency issues. There are dump trucks, and the debris that fell on roads also affect the maintenance cost, so I hope the government will review the issue. Also, I wonder if any buses will use the Central Kowloon bypass after it has been commissioned. For the Lantau link as well as the Tuen Mun Chat Lap Kok link, it does not charge buses any fees. For buses that make use of these fast routes, they are charging passengers even higher. While you encourage the public to use public transports with lower costs for the public transport operators, they are not lowering bus fares. Instead, they are increasing the bus fares. I don't think you have taken into consideration the public affordability in this regard. I hope in the future you will review all these. Thank you. Under Secretary. I'll give a brief response to the three questions. I agree that we need to review, where appropriate, the parking meter charges, whether there are different charges in different areas and during different periods. During nighttime, the biggest problem is that the charges or the meters could only be renewed every 2 hours. Say someone has already gone to bed at night and you ask them to pay for the renewed fees, that's not very considerate. We are also concerned about the management cost of tunnels, so we try our best to look for ways to increase revenue and cut costs. How come management costs for tunnels are higher compared to viaducts, for example? That's because there is ventilation system and there are no road shoulders. So there could be traffic congestion when there are car accidents. We have to respond very quickly. In case there are any car accidents, we need a management company to look at the operation of the tunnels 24/7. That's why the management costs are high. We want to make good use of new technologies and new materials and also energy-saving equipment or devices to minimize the management cost. As to whether any buses will make use of the Central Kowloon bypass, we have already made the plan. 9 buses will make use of the Central Kowloon bypass, and the charges will be implemented based on the usual practice. So it's not that buses will afford a higher cost. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. Some residents from the Southern District told me about their thoughts on the proposed toll for the Aberdeen Tunnel. It was commissioned in 1982 and 1983, and all along, motorists have been charged for using the Aberdeen Tunnel, and every day we see traffic congestion during non-peak hours as well. And they have been paying $5. With the South Island line, the traffic congestion has been alleviated a little bit. And now you are charging $8 for the Aberdeen Tunnel. So those who have been paying, they will continue to pay. And those who have not been paying, they won't have to pay. And so there have been views from the Southern District residents. Also, the quality of the Aberdeen Tunnel is going down. The road conditions is poor, and the ventilation system is getting old, and the tunnels are dilapidated. I hope that before the proposed toll is implemented, or after the proposed toll is implemented, you will modify the Aberdeen Tunnel or renovate it. Now turning to parking meter charges. I think it is inevitable to adjust the charges. But as mentioned by other members, the administration should know very well whether there is long-term occupation of metered parking spaces. Some are even charging others by occupying these parking spaces. I'm not asking you to ask the shop operators to move. I just hope that you can move the meters elsewhere. We want to make good use of the resources. We want more metered parking spaces. Now with increased revenue, I hope that you will install more parking meters. Undersecretary. I want to respond to the point about traffic congestion at the Aberdeen Tunnel. That's mostly because of the canal road. Well, the tunnel portal is connected to the canal road. If there is congestion on the canal road, that means there is also congestion at the Aberdeen Tunnel. Yes, I have noted your views. Now, on the point about tunnel quality as well as repair and maintenance issue. It's hard for us to carry out repair and maintenance works at busy roads because during daytime this is not possible, and during nighttime there might be noise pollution. So we will talk to the relevant departments to see how we can improve the road service.
Chairman, another point. For fuel-propelled car, we're talking about some $1 to $2 per kilometer. There is no incentive for owners to use Pak Fu Lam Road instead. But now with a toll hike from $5 to $8 if you go via the tunnel from Aberdeen to Causeway Bay, it's about 7.5 kilometers. And if you use Pufferland Road instead, it's about 13 kilometers. That's a difference of 6 kilometers. If you use e-private cars, that means you spend about $2 for 4 kilometers. So despite the time factor, it may be cheaper to use Pufferland Road instead. So you need to make sure that after increase in toll levels for Aberdeen Tunnel, the traffic condition will remain the same. Right, noted. About more metered parking spaces, we will do our level best before 2026. We expect that 220 additional metered parking spaces will come on stream. 220. That's 1%. Next, Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, Chair. Undersecretary heeded our views. For Central Kowloon bypass, the toll will be slashed from $10 to $8. I find this more palatable. Like the Undersecretary said, for Tseung Kwan O Sai Kung by 2030, by phases, there will be an additional population of 135,000. So since this Central Kowloon bypass will serve Tseung Kwan O residents as well as Yau Ma Tei residents, please consider introducing time-varying tolls, especially for non-peak hours, if capacity has not been reached. Because you never mention charging tolls for using Central Kowloon bypass. This is new to residents living in Tseung Kwan O Sai Kung. And also about franchise buses. Upon commissioning of Central Kowloon bypass and Route 6, for those taking buses from Tseung Kwan O to the airport, the journey time will be shortened by 20 minutes. So in terms of bus route development program, will there be new buses, new A or E routes plying Central Kowloon bypass and the airport? The third point is about parking meters. There are about 20,000 metered parking spaces in Hong Kong. I understand from the Transport Department that AI-enabled light sensing light sensors will be installed at the back of parking meters to monitor the occupation of parking spaces. I'm concerned about privacy. Will this software be able to detect something more than just the vehicle, such as what is placed inside the vehicles? I believe that privacy is a major concern. About long-term occupation of parking spaces, can you tell us whether there will be sufficient manpower for the police to conduct frequent patrols? Undersecretary. Chairman, about lowering tolls for non-peak hours for Central Kowloon bypass, I note this comment. We'll go back and give it a thought. About new bus routes from Tseung Kwan O to the airport, this is in fact in our plan. There is a new bus route that will depart from the public transport interchange in Tseung Kwan O to the airport via Central Kowloon bypass. Then I will give the floor to the Transport Department to take the next question. Of course, we are concerned about privacy as well. Now we are considering this AI-enabled light sensing component in the parking meter. Basically, it does not capture the license plate information. So we'll make sure that the privacy concerns will be properly addressed. But the point is, will the sensor be able to detect objects occupying the parking spaces and not the vehicles? Is there a timeline as to when this research will be completed and when this software will be used to monitor occupation of the parking space with objects? Let me elaborate. This sensor will be installed as one of the components of the parking meter, and this makes use of AI. By AI analytics, the sensor will find out whether the parking space is occupied by a traffic cone or by a genuine vehicle, and then we will pass on the information to the relevant departments. We plan to conduct a trial in the fourth quarter. If possible, we will introduce these sensors in phases. Next question about this airport bus from Chung Kwan O to the airport. Is there a timeline? What are the proposed fares? Do you have this information? Well, we need to wait for the commissioning of the Central Kowloon Bypass Kowloon Bay section, that's T2, before information is available. As for the proposed fares, we propose to charge $44. Next, Mr. Aman Yu. Thank you, Chair. The whole Central Kowloon Bypass will be the major route from Chung Kwan O to Kowloon West, and there will also be the Yamate section, which will be commissioned soon. I think the focus of our discussion is on traffic improvement at certain road junctions. I remember about a decade ago when we discussed the Central Kowloon Bypass, we were given the traffic impact assessment data in Kwun Tong. And we considered, for example, how the CKB and the Chung Kwan O Lam Tin Tunnel help divert traffic in Kwun Tong and Kowloon Bay, especially Shangyi Road. I remember the data were available in the LegCo paper and the District Council paper back then. But I don't seem to see an update from the information provided here. Would the government please explain the different toll proposals and the traffic impact assessment along Kwun Tong Bypass? Because I want to make sure after introducing the tolls there will not be a major traffic jam along the trunk roads. I'll give the floor to the TD colleagues to explain about Kowloon or Kwun Tong Bypass. Let me first apologize. In order to explain the TRA results, we usually just focus on the key sections of the roads. Now, indeed, like the member said, the most direct alternative route is Kwun Tong Bypass. According to the $8 proposal that we floated, and according to our estimate, for the VCR along Kwun Tong Bypass, it will go down from 1.08 to 0.96. So that's the result of traffic diversion. 1.08 down to 0.86 according to the $8 proposal. Right. Without Central Kowloon Bypass, the VCR for Kwun Tong Bypass now stands at 1.08. Now, with the $8 proposal, that means commissioning of T2, there will be a proper diversion of traffic, and then the VCR for Kwun Tong Bypass will come down to 0.96. Well, if any member would like to ask questions again, please press the button for a second round. Now it's my turn. I'm looking at the license fees for EPCs. I understand the government has heeded members' views. Instead of having 3 phases, the adjustment process will now take 5 phases over 6 years. So a gradual approach will be taken. As for the rated power, are you talking about the horsepower and the torque, or are you talking about the rated power of the batteries? Please elaborate. The other point is about metered parking or parking meter fees. The last fee adjustment was introduced decades ago. But I think the major concern is about illegal occupation of metered parking spaces. You explained that sensors will be installed to detect whether the parking space is occupied by a car or by an object, and that the police will be informed. Well, there is a need to remove objects because there is a genuine need for parking spaces. What about occupying a parking space with a car for the purpose of doing business? for the purpose of running some sort of business such as recycling or otherwise. And they occupy the parking spaces on a long-term basis. There is no turnover. Is there any way to tackle this problem? So you need to come up with a strategy to address that. As for tunnel tolls, I understand that it is a common wish among members that a review be conducted sometime after its implementation. We also discussed time-varying tolls. Undersecretary explained that the purpose of charging tolls is to divert traffic, but from the members' perspective, the whole point is about making savings for the general public. So please review the utilization of tunnels and, if possible, adjust the tolls so as to optimize the use of resources. A review should be conducted. So these are my 3 questions, Secretary. Rated power. That's the first question. There is a definition, and that is the horsepower of the vehicle's engine with the maximum power output for not less than 30 minutes. And that's the definition provided by the car makers at the time of registration. So that's not related to the battery, it's related to the horsepower of the car's engine. Now, for occupation of parking spaces, we will inform the law enforcement agency depending on the nature of the object. Not only the police will be informed, perhaps the FEHD or even the Lands Department will be informed as well. And that also depends on the location. As for tunnel tolls, I note the chairman's views. Like I said, the tolls will be reviewed. And we'll also consider whether more facilitation can be provided in the next adjustment exercise. 3 members would like to ask questions in the second round. I will give each member 3 minutes. Mr. Dennis Leung. As I understand, tolls will be charged as soon as the Central Kowloon bypass is commissioned. Now, before tolls are charged, would the government consider allowing motorists to use this section for some time so that they can adapt to this new route, and that the government can make use of this opportunity to collect data and compare traffic conditions before and after? This can help you plan your traffic management or toll levels in the future. Will you give it a thought? Chairman, we're not going to charge tolls immediately. For Central Kowloon Bypass Yamate section, we expect it to be commissioned in the end of this year, and at its commissioning, we don't propose to charge tolls. We only charge tolls when the Kowloon Bay section, and that's T2, is completed as well, and we're talking about the second half of next year, and only by then will we charge tolls. About the motorists' traveling pattern, basically we have introduced the Hong Kong e-toll arrangements. Their driving behavior will not be affected because it's a free-flow tolling service. They don't need to stop at the toll plaza to make payment. So that should not be a major impact on how they drive. At the moment, our plan is to start charging tolls when the whole Central Kowloon bypass is commissioned. In terms of monitoring traffic flow, our goal is to monitor the flow and how motorists are adapting to this new route after tolls are introduced. And then 1 year down the road, we'll conduct a review and determine whether toll levels should be adjusted. Mr. Leung. Thank you, Chairman. So before T2 is commissioned, will there be a toll-free arrangement, at least for some time slots, for motorists to adapt to the new road? Chairman, as I explained before T2 is commissioned, no toll will be charged. One can travel toll-free along Central Kowloon Bypass Yau Ma Tei section, that is from Yau Ma Tei to Kowloon Bay to Kai Tak. No, my question is whether tolls will be charged immediately as soon as the next section is commissioned. Chairman, I think I've answered the question. No toll will be charged before the Central Kowloon Bypass is completed in full. Right, that means when it's fully commissioned, tolls will be charged immediately. I think I have answered the question. We do not plan to introduce what the member suggested.
Mr. Frankie Yik, I want to follow up on the question. After the sensor is installed, how will law enforcement be conducted? In the past, there were quite a number of complaints. It really depends on what kind of technology you use. If you use AI and you notice that it is a wooden board that's occupying the parking space, then you won't call the police. You will instead ask another department to come deal with the question. And will you ask the department to remove the wooden board? I know that there are certain loopholes in the sense that if the wooden board is placed on the road, you have one department to deal with it. And if you have the wooden board placed in a different types of road and you have a different department to deal with it, that's problematic. Under Transport Department, we want to do the testing in Q4 this year. We will then find out what will be the best technology we should use. We do not only rely on the light sensing components, we will have officers conducting patrol every day during the testing period. If any problems are detected, we will ask the contractors to deal with it, and we will ask the relevant law enforcement agency to follow up. Of course, it's great to have the sensors detect problems early. I think we should have further discussion on how the law should be enforced. Mr. Kitson Yang, I want to follow up on what the Undersecretary said just now. I mentioned about one point just now. Our expectation is that we hope that there should be a connecting road that link up Kai Tak as well as Tseung Kwan O and Yau Ma Tei. Undersecretary said that there it's a road connecting Kai Tak to Yau Ma Tei, but then we also need a connecting road that leads us to Tseung Kwan O. If this can be achieved, then greater diversion effect will be achieved as well. So I hope the government will consider this. That's my first point. Also, Mr. Leung said heavy goods vehicles will benefit. For taxis, every kilometer it costs $0.5, and for gas-propelled taxis, that's 0.7 per kilometers. I hope that you will consider all scenarios, not just instead of just looking at heavy goods vehicles, and tell us that all kinds of vehicles will benefit from the new proposal. Now, I want to bring up one new point. I want to talk about metered parking spaces. Currently, some people might cover the light sensing components of the parking meters. I hope that you will deal with this problem, making use of your systems and app. In Shenzhen, this kind of technology is very mature. Without light sensing components or software, once a car approaches, it will be able to detect it and start charging the motorist. And this can avoid long-term occupation of metered parking spaces. I hope the administration will consider using this kind of technologies. Undersecretary, we want to try our best to adopt new technologies. That's my first point. The second question is about how different types of vehicles can save up different amount of money. I was simply offering some examples just now as to whether motorists can go directly from Kai Tak to Tseung Kwan O using the Central Kowloon Bypass. As far as I understand, this is not possible. TD, If you come from Kowloon West, you can use the CKB to go to Kowloon Bay and Kai Tak. So the Yamate section is like an extension, and it can lead you to Chang Kwan O. So there's no problem if you travel from Kowloon West to Chang Kwan O. I understand the aspiration of the public. Will there be better connection? Now, our conception is that after the CKB helps divert certain traffic from Chang Kwan O to Yau Tong, there will be less traffic because of the diversion. We hope to rationalize the traffic network this way. It's like the 3 road harbor crossings. After we have achieved a high level of traffic diversion at regional level, we will see how we can achieve better improvement. If there are no further questions, we will now come to the scrutiny of the 3 pieces of subsidiary legislations. As usual, we will look at the Chinese text. I will ask the legal advisor to see whether there are any issues with the English text. During the scrutiny, if there are any legal issues, I ask the legal advisor to remind members of those. We will first look at the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Number 2 Regulation 2025. Please refer to LC paper CB bracket 31207/2025 bracket 01. Ms. Zhang, please walk us through the marked up copy. Ms. Chang. Thank you. We now look at the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Number 2 Regulation 2025. All provisions will start taking effect from the 28th of September. Clause 2. It is about amending Cap 374C. There are 3 provisions, and Clause 3, that's marked up copy page 1, and that is an amendment to Schedule 2. For ticket-based parking spaces, as well as other types of parking spaces, the maximum fee will go up from $2 per 15 minutes to $4 per 15 minutes. That's all for this piece of subsidiary legislation. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next one. Road Traffic Registration and Licensing of Vehicles Amendment Number 4 Regulation 2025. Clause 1 commencement. This regulation will come into operation on the 21st of September 2025. And then the amendment will come into effect from 2027 to 2030. Clause 2. Amendment to the Road Traffic Registration and Licensing of Vehicles. There are 12 provisions. Please refer to page 1 of the marked up copy. That is to add a definition for electric vehicles to section 2 of Cap 374E. Yes, Mr. Frankie Yik? I'm looking at this definition and I have a question as well as a suggestion. The text here says electrically powered passenger vehicle means a private car solely propelled by an electric motor. Hybrid vehicles, there are 2 types. One type using batteries. And for another type of vehicles, the batteries are just for charging and the engine is for propelling the electric vehicle. I understand that you are currently still charging EVs based on the still charging hybrid vehicles using the model for fuel-propelled PCs. So I hope you will revise the definition here by adding the phrase that electrically powered passenger vehicle means a private car propelled by an electric motor and without any emission. I'll ask the law draftsman to elaborate later on. For the type of hybrid vehicles mentioned by Mr. Frankie Yik under the road traffic regulations, we have covered this type of vehicles. We normally have three types of vehicles. One, propelled by fuel, and second, propelled by electric motors, and thirdly, propelled by electric motor or fuel. And for hybrid vehicles, we have always charged motorists based on the model for fuel-propelled private cars. Yes, administration. For the definition, it says electrically powered passenger vehicle means a private car solely propelled by an electric motor. If fuel has to be added, then it will not be considered as a private car solely propelled by an electric motor. If you look at the relevant road traffic legislations, there are similar phrasing. For example, for CAP 374A Regulation 38A, it says that some of the vehicles are solely propelled by an electric motor. For CAP 374Q Regulation 4, there is similar phrasing as well. For this particular amendment, we are drawing reference from the existing road traffic legislations when we drafted this definition to ensure consistency. Chairman, I don't agree. It doesn't mean that we should adopt the same definition simply because this definition is used in other legislations. There are two different hybrid vehicles, one propelled by electric motor, another propelled by fuel. For some vehicles, there is a small engine, and that's for battery charging, and the propulsion is still relying on the electric motor. Simply put, I can make use of charging facilities to provide power to my battery. But for hybrid vehicles, there is a small power generator in my vehicle, and the propulsion is relying on the electric motor. So, in principle, it is still an electric vehicle. I've consulted your colleagues. If there is emission, then it should be considered as a fuel-propelled car. So I think you should add an extra condition to this definition. You may want to revise the two regulations you mentioned just now. Otherwise, I have the right to bring up a litigation. Well, we think that the proposed definition is acceptable. This is not just for this particular amendment exercise. For example, before this proposal is brought up, we already have the existing classification for the three types of EVs. For the type of vehicle described by Mr. Frankie Yik, we considered those as fuel-propelled cars. Well, in the past, there was only one charging level. Well, in the past, we also have different charges. Well, but the difference now is that, say, I have a hybrid vehicle. How much should I be charged? You should not charge me for a fuel-propelled car. What I'm saying is that my hybrid vehicle is propelled by an electric motor and there's no emission. Then how come you are charging me for a fuel-propelled car? You should charge me less. As if my car is an electric vehicle. We will consider this and we will provide a written response afterwards. I think this question is very valid. I hope the administration will look into this to avoid any legal disputes in the future. So please respond to this question. Please carry on. Page 5 to page 9. This is to amend Regulation 21(9). For eligible disabled people, they can enjoy tax concessions. As long as the rated power does not exceed 75 kilowatt, no license fees will have to be paid. If it exceeds 75 kilowatt, the annual license fee will be based on the rated power, deducting the charge that is for less than 75 kilowatt. Any questions?
新型規例第5條標明文
We now turn to page 10 to page 11 of the marked up copy, amending section 23(2), and that this concession applies to license for of motor vehicles for use in Lantau only. Clause 6, page 12, amending section 23A. The concession for eligible disabled persons driving EPCs, it applies to licensing of motor vehicles for use on private roads in Lantau only. Clause 7, page 13 to 14 of marked up copy, amending section 62A, is a transitional provision. Transitional arrangements will be put in place for the adjustment of EPC annual license fee structure. For eligible EPC owners, within 4 months after the new structure comes into effect, that's before the 28th of February 2026, they can apply for renewal of the license on the existing fee level for a full year or 4 months, but this does not apply to new applications or renewal applications. Next, clause 8, pages 15 to 21, amending Schedule 2. We will scrap the electrically powered passenger vehicle license fee calculation on the basis of unladen weight. Instead, there will be 5 tiers based on rated power. Next, clause 9, marked up copy, pages 22 to 23, amending part 3 of the schedule. And that phase 2 of the above said license fees will be introduced on the 1st of March 2027. Next, clause 10, pages 24-25 of the marked up copy, amending part 4 to the schedule. That is to introduce phase 3 of the adjustment to the ALF for EPC starting the 1st of March 2028. No questions. Next, marked up copy, pages 26-27. Amending Part 5 to Schedule 2, that is increase of ALF for EPCs starting from the 1st of March 2029. That's the 4th phase. Next, Clause 12, amending Part 6 to the schedule, which will come into effect on the 1st of March 2030 for the 5th phase of the ALF adjustment for EPCs. That completes the scrutiny of this piece of subsidiary legislation. We will now turn to Road Tunnels Government Regulations Amendment number 2, Regulation 2025. The first one is the commencement date, and that means the provisions relating to the toll adjustment come into effect on the 21st of September 2025 for Aberdeen and Shingmun tunnels. Next, for this provision relating to Central Kowloon Bypass Yamate Section Tunnel, it will come into effect on the date appointed by the Secretary for Transport and Logistics, as published in the Gazette. Next, to amend Road Tunnels Government Regulations Cap 368A. There are 3 clauses. The first one, marked up copy, pages 1 and 2. Section 3.1. For Aberdeen and Shangwon tunnels, the tolls will be raised from $5 to $8. Next, for Part 1, Schedule 2 of Cap 368A, the toll level for Central Kowloon Bypass Yamate Section Tunnel will also be set at 8. No questions. Legal advisor, any views on the marked up copies? I haven't found any discrepancy between the Chinese and English renditions, Chair. Right, my next question is whether we should invite the public to submit written views. No. At the Council meeting of the 30th of July, the Chair of the House Committee, Dr. Starry, already moved a resolution to extend the scrutiny of these items of subsidiary legislation to the 10th of September 2025. The scrutiny period ends at the 10th of September. That means now the deadline for giving notice for amending the 3 items would be the 3rd of September. We will report to the House Committee on the 29th of August. Any other questions on these 3 items? Anything to add? If not, that's the end of the scrutiny. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.